So today this is Political Science and International Relations introduction class. So demo class. It is for all of you to understand what you see and what you have to learn. Okay, how you have to present political science optional subject and question paper. So this is all about what is the syllabus of political science and international relations syllabus, and the details and every minute topics of the important concepts of the syllabus, and how we have to prepare and what should be our approach to the study of the optional, and also the prospects of getting good marks in the optional, and lastly and most importantly, so the way of approaching political science and international relations option, and what is the benefit of studying this option. So this is all we will study in the present class. So the first thing, every optional paper has two papers. Every optional subject has two papers. So this is the paper 1. So in paper 1 we have two parts. I am getting into the details, minute details. Okay, very little details also I am covering. So don't consider that the syllabus is very vast. I am giving you the important minute details. So let us first see the name of part A. The name of part A is Political Theory, and later part B, Indian Politics. So part A is mainly about political theory, okay, and approaches to the study of political science, okay, and also political ideologies. Part A mainly deals with political theory, approaches, political ideologies, and political thinkers, especially world political thinkers, philosophers, and also Indian political thinkers and philosophers. These four are the important component of part A. So in paper 1 of PSIR optional, in the part A, we have political theory, and later we have different approaches. We have different approaches to the study of political science, to the study of political science, and later we also study in part A of paper 1, we also study political ideologies, and lastly, fourth part of this, fourth component of the first part is about the political philosophers. Political philosophers. Okay, both Western political philosophers and Indian political philosophers. These are the broad categories of, okay, concepts in paper 1 part A. Okay, so I want to highlight here that of all the political science and international relations optional subject, this is the only theoretical part. This is the only static part, as we call. Okay, this is the only static and theoretical part. So for understanding theoretical part, my advice for all of you is to go to the root of the concept. If we can understand the concept, we can very easily understand the entire theory. Okay, so there is nothing difficult in it. Okay, so let us go to the individual concepts in these topics. So first one, political theory. What is the meaning of political theory, and what are the various approaches to the study of political theory? So this is the first part. There are mainly 2 or 3 important approaches: historical approach, normative, philosophical, historical approach, scientific approach like behavioral approach, post-behavioral approach. These are very easy. Okay, the names are only difficult. Only the technical terms that we use are difficult. If we get into the concept, then it becomes very normal, common, regular that we use in the common daily life, because we observe politics even from very small age. Okay, to study politics is to study what we have already observed. That is the simplicity of this subject. We already observe politics, but we have to study categorically, in a proper systematic way, what we have already observed. So once we get into the study of political science syllabus, we can very easily understand that. So we have already have the knowledge of these topics. So meaning and approaches of political theory and theories of state. What is the meaning of theories of state? What is the purpose of the state government? How should the government be formed? What is the relationship between the government and the governed? Okay, the people who govern and the people who are governed. What is the relation? What is the ideal state? What is the ideal government? Okay, so how to improve our structure of government? These are all parts of theories of state. So every theory, for example, liberal theory has one particular understanding of government. So like neoliberal, Marxist, pluralist, post-colonial and feminist. So these are the theories of state. They have different conceptions of a good state, an ideal state or a proper state. Okay, so that we study. Okay, please don't think that these are all very great number of topics. I will give you an example. If you have studied about liberalism properly, then you can easily understand liberal theory of state. Okay, liberal theory of state and liberal theory of justice. Okay, especially Rawls. Rawls theory of justice is the next concept. This Rawls theory of justice is the most important concept in the entire study of political science. Rawls theory of justice. It is just like our Ambedkar's theory of justice. Very easy. So, like liberal theory of justice. Next, equality. What is the meaning of equality? What is the meaning of social equality, political equality, economic equality? And what is the relationship between equality, freedom and affirmative action? Okay, affirmative action means in India, we follow the system of reservations to provide equal opportunities for marginalized communities. Okay, so that is the meaning of affirmative action. We already study all these things in Indian society, polity, modern Indian history, post-independence history. But here we bring whatever we have studied so far under one category. That's the importance. Next, what is the meaning of rights? We always use the word rights. Okay, in current affairs you study about rights, in polity, in modern Indian history, post-independence history, Indian society. So we now study it in a systematic way. Okay, so meaning of rights, what are the various theories of rights? Communitarian theory of rights, liberal theory of rights, what are the different kinds of rights, political rights, civil rights, civil liberties, human rights. So these are the various rights we study. Now, what is the meaning of democracy? What are different conceptions of democracy? So we already study about democracy. Okay, we always study about democracy, but we study from the perspective of political science. That's it. So classical theory of democracy, which was followed in ancient Greece, and contemporary theories of democracy. Okay, so what are different variations, different conceptions of democracy, like representative democracy and two important ways of improving democratic system: participatory democracy, deliberative democracy. We already know about democracy, just we add some important current thoughts about democratic system. And what is power? We always use the word power. But what is power? We understand the concept. Okay. What is hegemony? What is ideology? What is legitimacy? Okay. With which power is used? So this about power also we discuss. Okay. We know much about. And what are the different ideologies we have to study? What are the different political ideologies? For example, liberalism, okay, which we already covered here. Okay, about liberal theory of state. If we cover about liberalism, we can study about liberal theory of state, liberal theory of equality, about classical liberalism, liberal theory of democracy, liberal theory of power. So everywhere we can apply that liberalism. Okay. So once we study a particular ideology, we can apply the same ideology at different concepts. So even though the number of topics may look very large in number, but actually they are all interconnected. If we can understand that connection, we can very easily understand every topic, every concept. So liberalism, important ideologies we have to study: socialism, Marxism, fascism, okay, Gandhiism and feminism. Okay, if we properly study modern Indian history and modern world history, we can very easily understand about Gandhiism, about fascism. We already cover in modern world history. We already cover socialism and Marxism in modern world history. Feminism is the only thing we need to study, okay, separately. Okay, so I will explain which are the most important topics later at the end of the class. I am just giving you the examples, the proper understanding of each and every concept. Next, we have to study about political thought, political philosophy. Okay, first Indian. About Dharma Shastras. Much about Dharma Shastras we already learned from ancient Indian history. About Dharma Shastras and Kautilya's Ardhashastra. We already studied this in ancient Indian history. And about a Buddhist tradition. No, not complete philosophy of Buddhism. Just what are the views of Buddhism and Buddha with regard to politics. Only just Buddha's philosophy of power, philosophy of government. That's it. Next, coming to modern times, we study about Syed Ahmad Khan and his political ideas that we already covered during modern Indian history. And Aurobindo, one of the most important extremist leaders and also one of the earliest revolutionaries of Indian national struggle for freedom. Sir Aurobindo, Sri Aurobindo's political ideas we study here in the Indian political thought. And Gandhiji's political ideas, Ambedkar's political ideas, and M.N. Roy, radical humanism, which we already covered in the modern Indian history, but we get into only the political ideas of these great personalities. Next, we also study the Western political thought from Plato, his disciple Aristotle. These belong to the ancient times. These are very easy to understand because in our thought process or in our political approaches, okay, so these ideas, the ideas of Plato and Aristotle became a part even without us understanding explicitly, okay, separately. The ideas of Plato and Aristotle became a part of our thought process. We just have to discover what we already knew about them. That's it. Machiavelli. So here we start modern political thought. Machiavelli, just like Kautilya's Ardhashastra. Both of their political ideas are similar. Next, Hobbes, Locke and Mill. Okay, these are all the founders of liberal tradition. Hobbes, Locke and Mill, these three persons are the founders of the modern liberal political tradition that we follow in every country. We just have to find our own roots. That's it. And about Marx, we already studied about Marx, if you remember. So in the Marxist theory of state, So that, and another ideology of Marxism. And now we have Marx as a person we study. So all are same. Okay, we just have to understand Marxism completely, then we can apply it, whether it is in political ideology, theory of state, or theory of power, or at a theory of justice, or as a political thinker. We study only once, we apply it in different concepts. That's it. And Gramsci. Without Gramsci, we cannot expect a question to be we cannot expect a question paper to be given. Gramsci or Anna Arendt. So these two corrected the modern political ideas from dictatorship. Okay, so this is the part A of paper 1. This is the only so-called difficult part of political science syllabus. Okay, so only about a theory. If we get into the roots of the concept and understand it very simply, it becomes very easy for us to answer the questions asked from any topic in part A. Now let us come to part B. It is mainly about Indian government and politics. Mainly about Indian government and politics. Okay, the most important part of part B, most important concepts of part B. We are still in paper 1. Please understand, we are still in paper 1. We completed part A, now we have part B. So most of the topics covered in part B mainly comes from 2 subjects only. First one, modern and post-independence history. If you have fairly good knowledge of modern history and post-independence history, you can very easily answer questions from part B. Very easy. And you must have fairly good knowledge about polity, static part of polity. That's it. If you have fairly good knowledge of these 2 concepts, you can very easily answer questions from part B. Okay, now let us cover part B. In Indian government and politics, the first and important concept is, what are the political strategies followed by our great national leaders during the struggle for independence? What are the political strategies? For example, different national leaders followed different strategies. Gandhi followed a different strategy for gaining independence for India, and also for nation building, not only independence but nation building. And Ambedkar followed a different strategy. Marxist leaders followed a different strategy. Okay, revolutionary leaders like Bhagat Singh followed a different strategy. So these strategies we have to study. Okay, and there were several peasant movements and workers movements. These are all already covered in modern Indian history. Okay, so we have to just revise them and understand them in the new light. Just it. Next one, perspectives on Indian national movement. What is the liberal perspective of Indian national movement? Again, liberalism, same liberalism. What is the perspective of socialist thinkers? What is the perspective of Marxist thinkers? Even though Indian national movement is the same for every person, the facts of Indian national movement are the same. But different people, according to their perspectives, understand it completely differently. Liberals understand it differently. Ambedkar understood it differently. Ambedkar's concerns were different. Socialist leaders understand Indian national movement differently. Dalit leaders like Ambedkar, radical humanist M.N. Roy, they have their own understanding of Indian national movement. That we study. Already what we have known, we just study again. And making of Indian constitution. Here we come to the polity part. Okay, which we already covered. Which you already may have covered in the polity. Okay, so how Indian constitution is made, and what are the precedents, what are the previous versions of Indian constitution, okay, according to which British ruled India, regulating acts, charter acts, and Morley Minto reforms, Montague-Chelmsford Act. Okay, so Government of India Act 1935, along with Indians, what Indians wanted from their own constitution. For example, Motilal Nehru's committee report, okay, so etc. So M.N. Roy's efforts to prepare a constitution for India, Ambedkar made an effort to prepare a constitution for India before he became a member of the Constituent Assembly. So these are all studied. Okay, so different perspectives expressed in the making of Indian Constitution. What are the features of Indian Constitution? I am giving you the details. So you may think that there are more concepts. Actually, these are very small concepts, but I am giving you details for you to have more clarity. So preamble we study, fundamental rights, duties, directive principles, parliamentary system, amendment procedures, judicial review, basic structure doctrine, which you already covered in polity, and principal organs of government, union government and state government, principal organs of government. Okay, and this is the most important concept of part B. Grassroots democracy, local governance, Panchayat Raj. Okay, so you can expect a question every year from this important concept. Okay, so for example, 73rd, 74th amendments. So what are the grassroots movements in order to democratize a local governance also? These movements aimed at democratizing local governance. So this is about it. And the next one, statutory institutions and commissions. Okay, constitutional bodies, statutory institutions. For example, Election Commission, COG, Finance Commission, UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, how they are constituted, how they work, what are their contributions, how they could be further reformed for, okay, improving their performance. So this all can be studied. And another important concept in this part B is about national commissions. Okay, a question can be asked, okay, from national commissions of either SC/ST commissions, minority commissions, women, National Commission for Women. Okay, so these questions can be asked. Next one, about federalism, the concept about federalism. What are the provisions in our Indian Constitution that refer about federalism? This is the most important and debated topic in present current affairs. Okay, so we already have fairly good knowledge about this concept of federalism. Okay, and integrationist tendencies, that means centripetal tendencies and centrifugal tendencies. So centralizing tendencies and decentralizing tendencies in our federal approach. Okay, what are the disputes between states? What are the disputes between center and the states? So what is the role of governor in the present federal framework of Indian Constitution? Is it working? Is the governor's system working according to the ideas of the constitutional founding fathers of Indian Constitution? Or how could we better reform the governor system? Okay, is it really necessary? Such kind of questions we actually see in the debates, in newspapers also. In newspaper columns we read them. Next, another important concept, the role of caste, religion and ethnicity in Indian politics. This you already study in Indian society subject. So this is another important system. And later, party system. So what are the national parties and regional parties? What are their different ideologies? And which sections of Indian society actually support these political parties and their ideologies? Okay, so what is the meaning of coalition politics? Have we gained as a country because of coalition politics, or have we gained because of the majority politics? So what is the meaning of electoral behavior? On the basis of which factors people vote to a political party, particular political party? So how to study their behavior? So these are all very minor concepts which we can easily cover. And about civil liberties, social movements. Social movements were fought in India in the earlier decades after independence for protecting the constitutional rights and civil liberties of Indian people, Indian citizens. Later, for their economic rights. Later, for their rights on land. Okay, because they were displaced because of developmental projects. Later, these movements were fought in order to end corruption or to or against liquor policies of the state. Or these movements were also fought against communal politics in Indian society, communal politics. And these movements were also fought much later, okay, about environmental rights of Indian citizens. So these are the broader concepts which we study. These are very easy concepts. So this is all about paper 1. So paper 1 has 2 parts, part A and part B. And in total paper 1 we get 250 marks. Please understand. So you are getting these 250 marks very easily. Okay, because most of the topics in paper 1 only we study with some seriousness. Some seriousness means with a bit of difficulty. Okay, because some of you may believe that, okay, theory part or conceptual part is a bit difficult to understand. But if we make it simple, these concepts are very simple, we just have to go to the roots. That's it. Okay, so you can get these 250 marks very easily without studying anything completely new. Okay, because most of the topics in part B of paper 1, so you already cover in modern Indian history, post-independence history, Indian polity and Indian society. We just bring these concepts under one category. That's it. Next one. Now let us discuss about paper 2. After discussing about paper 2, we also see the last 2 years question papers also, paper 1 and paper 2. Then you can gain better understanding of how this subject is questioned in the question paper. Next one. So paper 2 is mainly about comparative politics and international relations. Okay, so first part of paper 2 is comparative politics and international relations. So this is half of this part is theory part. Again, theory means concepts only, not difficulties. So what are the approaches to study comparative politics? First of all, what is comparative politics? The term may look very difficult to understand. Comparative politics is nothing but how do we study different political systems. For example, India, we have liberal democratic system. That is our political system. Secular, liberal, democratic system. But in China, they have an authoritarian communist model. In Russia, they have a majoritarian quasi-dictatorship. Okay, if we go to England or Britain, so they have constitutional monarchy and a liberal centralized political system. If we go to America or any country of southern part of American continent, South American continent, we can see presidential model of governance. Okay, and federal constitutional model. So in comparative politics, how shall we compare these different political systems? Okay, how shall we compare? How shall we better study them? Okay, that's what we do in comparative politics. What is the nature of comparative politics? What is the meaning, definition of comparative politics? Okay, what are the major approaches for the study? What are the major approaches? That's it. Okay, and there is a political economy model, political sociology model. These are the main approaches to the study of comparative politics that we study. And how do we study the nature of state? How do we study the nature of state in comparative politics? These are all very easy. For example, if we are given a chance, okay, to go and migrate to a particular country, okay, we are given a choice of 4 or 5 countries. Do we show interest to go and settle in China or in Russia or in North Korea, okay, which are authoritarian dictatorial models of political systems? or we show interest to go and settle in England, France, Germany, Switzerland, or America. So why do we make this decision? We already know the answer, but how do we make this decision? On the basis of which factors we make this decision about which country has a better political system? That's it. That's what comparative politics is all about. Okay. So next, politics of representation and participation. So we study about political parties. Along with political parties, there are pressure groups also, lobbying pressure groups like trade unions, teachers unions, students unions, or grassroots movements, which we already studied in part B. Okay. So in industrial and developing societies, not only in India, but also in America, France, and in Britain, for example. For example, I give you, in France, for close to 2 months or 3 months, citizens in Paris have been fighting against, have been leading a movement against some of the policies of their own government. Okay. So what are the reasons for these movements started in advanced developing countries like France, US, Britain? Okay, these countries. Take for example in America. In America, so there is a movement for racial equality without against discrimination, for a country without any racial discrimination. Black Lives Matter. So why these movements are happening in countries of advanced industrially developed nations? So next one, globalization. Very important concept in paper 2, part A, globalization, which we already study in your economic classes, and also in post-independence history we also study about globalization. But globalization is not giving, I'm not getting into the meaning, definition, approaches to the study. No, I'm simply giving you why this globalization topic is here. Globalization topic is asked here because globalization is giving different kind of results and achievements to different sort of countries. Okay. So for example, African, Latin American, Asian countries, except for India, China, Southeast Asian countries, and Korea, South Korea. Except for these countries, most of the countries in Asia, most of the countries in Africa, most of the countries in Latin America, South America, they have not properly benefited from the new economic ideology called globalization. So how can we better reform this globalization, this economic system called globalization? So why it has given different results in developed societies and developing societies? Okay, but if we take only one society, it has given different results to different communities within the same society. Why there are divisions and inequalities? Okay, in results, in achieving of results, because of globalization. That we study in this concept. Okay, that is very important for us to get answers also. Okay, approach to the study of international relations. This is the most important topic in discussion at present, because after Russia started its war against Ukraine, Russian-Ukrainian war. So how do we approach this war? What should we do? What should be our response? Okay, how should we make our efforts to stop this war? These questions are very hotly debated, not only among the diplomats, but also among politicians, economists, okay, and intellectuals, students. So this question this topic of international relations has a very great importance at present. Okay, so we can expect a question, okay, many questions from international relations. But what are the approaches we use to study international relations? There are different approaches: idealist approach, realist approach, Marxist approach, functionalist approach, and systems approach to study international relations. Okay, next one, What are the key concepts? Like balance of power, deterrence. If you read a column on international relations written by any expert, you can find all these concepts in that particular column. But what is the actual meaning of these words? Concepts that we study. Next one, international political order is changing very rapidly after Russia's war on Ukraine has started. So, we have to study about the rise of new superpowers like India and China. The fall, the decline and fall of the old superpowers like Britain, US and Russia. Okay. So, what are the studies, strategies and ideological bipolarity during the Cold War era? Between 1947 to 91, there was Cold War. So, we study about arms race, nuclear threat, Cold War, which we have already covered in modern world history. This is not a non-alignment movement. So, non-aligned movement we already study in our international relation classes, post-independence history classes, we already study this. Okay. Collapse of Soviet Union, unipolarity. That means America being the only superpower at present. Other countries are rising, but they have not yet gained the stature of a superpower. Okay. So, what is the relevance of non-alignment now? This is the most debated question today. Okay. So, India is following non-aligned approach with regard to Russia's war on Ukraine. But is there any scope for non-alignment again rediscovered by countries like India, okay, and South Africa, etc.? Or in place of non-alignment, should we come up with any new approach, okay, for international relations? This is the most debated concept today in all newspaper columns, and also will be very useful for us to study in our political science classes. Next, evolution of international economic system like Bretton Woods. We already covered this in Indian economy. So, socialist economies and a council for mutual economic assistance. Third world countries have been demanding for, okay, new approach for international economic system. Okay, so for world economy, about United Nations, what are the original goals of United Nations, how far they have been achieved, okay, is the present structure of United Nations, okay, giving better results for protecting world peace or not? Should there be any new reforms? Happening in the structure of United Nations and especially Security Council that we have been demanding for quite a bit of time. So, these are all asked in United Nations. And regionalization, that means regional associations like EU, ASEAN, APEC, ARC, NAFTA, or Quad. These are all regional associations. Okay. Next, contemporary. What are the contemporary concerns? About nuclear warfare, present. Okay, nuclear warfare and the collapse of liberal international order, okay, that was established by US and the Western powers during the time of Cold War and after the collapse of Soviet Union. So, this new international order has been quickly declining. Okay. So, in that place, which international order must be, okay, constructed again by most importantly the superpowers and also rising superpowers. Okay. And what are the important concerns like human rights or environment, especially climate change, global warming, about gender justice, about terrorism, nuclear proliferation. So, what kind of approaches we have to follow to solve all these present global problems? Okay. This is all about paper 1 and paper 2 part A. Now, let us come to part B. Paper 2 part A is all about the world, different political systems, their studies, international relations, how to study international relations, and what are the important global concerns, how the UN is functioning, okay, what are the regional associations formed, how they are working. So, globalization, climate change, global warming. So, these are all the important concerns we study in part A of paper 2. In part B of paper 2, we study only Indian foreign relations. Only Indian foreign relations. Okay, so this is not at all theoretical. Okay, because these are already in news, or we study so many columns every day. Okay, and these are all we study in Indian foreign relations also. Okay, first one, how Indian policy makers determine our foreign policy. Okay, what are our important concerns in determining the foreign policy of our country? That we study. Second one, most importantly, non-alignment, which we already studied in the part A of paper 2. Okay, about non-alignment movement. So, what is our contribution to non-alignment? So, why non-alignment had given better results to the world, which was torn between two superpowers? So, that we study. And what is India's role in our own neighborhood, in South Asia, in our own neighborhood? For example, take SARC. Okay, so why SARC was founded? What are its contributions? How should we evaluate it? Does it have any relevance at present or not? Is there any future prospects for SARC or not? That we study. Next, South Asia as a free trade area. What are our main concerns with our neighbors like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, okay, Myanmar? What should be mainly worried about? Okay, next one. What is the meaning of India's look east policy? We already know about that. Okay, so we study about look east policy. Now we also have act east policy. Okay, that means we have taken seriously our relations with Southeast Asian countries, especially with an East Asian country like Japan and Korea. So we have been giving greater importance to establish ties, proper relations with, important relations with countries like Japan. Next one, India and the global south. What is the meaning of global south? The less benefited nations because of the new political and economic system after the Second World War in African countries and also Latin American countries. So India is leading them in demanding for a fair political system and a fair economic system in the international arena for these countries. Okay, next one, at WTO in trade prospects. India and the global centers of power. So what are our relations with the US, EU, Japan, China, Russia, which we already study regularly in our foreign policy concerns. Next one, what is India's role in the UN system? Already in part A, we studied these concepts, but in part B, we study India's role in these institutions. That's a difference. Okay, India's role in UN peacekeeping, India's role in protecting world peace, and why we are demanding for a permanent seat in the Security Council. And India and the nuclear question. So India is also a nuclear powered nation, nuclear armed nation. So what are our approach to use of nuclear weapons? Okay, and recent developments in Indian foreign policy, especially with regard to Afghanistan issue, with regard to Iraq and West Asia, with regard to Russia-Ukraine war, with regard to America's growing conflict with China. So what should be our approach to protect both our own national interest and also world peace? Okay, protecting our own national interest comes first, but our own national interest must be aligned with protecting world peace or making sure peace prevails in the world. So these are the important concerns of Indian foreign policy at present. So I gave you minute details about the important concepts of every topic under discussion. But my point is, if you stop here and revise or remember, okay, whatever we have discussed so far. I think 60 or 70% of the topics we mentioned in this class, I mentioned in the class, okay, are already familiar to you, are already familiar, okay. So you read them in newspapers or in other subjects like Indian society, polity, modern Indian history, post-independence history. So my opinion is that, this is strictly my opinion is that out of all the concepts in political science and international relations syllabus, 30% is what we study newly. Remaining 60% or 70% syllabus is which we already cover under different subjects, okay, under current affairs, foreign relations, international relations, etc., etc. We already cover already, okay. So just we need to get clarity on these topics, that's it, okay. So this is the entire syllabus of political science and international relations. Now, how questions are asked? This is the most important concept. Now I will take 2022 question paper only, recent question paper, okay. So the first section of paper 1, section A, paper 1, section A, please see. So these are 5 concepts asked. There are 5 concepts asked. We have to give answer, and 5, each question gives us 10 marks. 5 tens are 50. So first one, systems approach. Systems approach for the study of political science. Okay. So next one, cultural relativism. So that means, for example, no single culture can claim that it has universal aspects in it. Only it has universal aspects in it. For example, every society has built their own cultural forms over a period of thousands of years. So cultural relativism means, okay, so we have to accept the norm that every society has built their own cultural forms which are working for better human happiness in for their own societies. So that is the meaning of cultural relativism, not cultural absolutism. Okay, revolution in permanence. This is with regard to Marxism. In Marxism, we study basis of power. We study this concept in the concept paper 1 part A under the concept of power and hegemony, theories of power. About John Locke, his social contract we study. John Locke, okay, as a political philosopher, and John Locke's idea of liberalism, of state. We study this concept, which we already cover, okay. Next one, factors like community, culture and nation weaken the hegemony of neoliberalism. This comes into the topic of neoliberalism, okay. So we already covered this concept of neoliberalism under political ideologies. And about equality, this question is asked. Equality of estates caused equality of power, and equality of power is liberty. Just Ambedkar's concept, okay. So for real equality we achieve in society, power is essential, okay. Power should flow, power should spread, okay, to all sections of society. Power should not be in the control of, political power should not be under the control of any one community or any one set of family or any one set of community. Power should flow, okay, then only real equality can be achieved. Please see. So about neoliberalism, this is 20 marks. If we study properly neoliberalism, that gives us 20 marks. Equality concept, 15 marks. And elitist theory of democracy. There are several theories of democracy. In several theories of democracy, elitist theory is also one important theory, okay. So that gives us 15 marks. So elitist theory means just like in the classical democracy of ancient Greece. And later, liberal theory of state. Liberal theory of state. We already discussed about theories of state. Liberal, Marxist, socialist, feminist, etc. and anarchist. Next one, Another question is asked about human rights. Human rights are complex and contested social practice that organizes relation between individual, society and state. So we just have to understand the statement and present our knowledge, present our subject according to the question asked. Okay, that's it. This is next one. Individualism is inherent in Hobbes' absolutist ideology. So that means Hobbes, we study about Hobbes as political philosopher, and about Hobbes' ideology, there is the concept of freedom and individualism. That we, not the entire ideology of Hobbes we have to present, only we have to give the background, introduction to Hobbes' ideas, ideologies, and in these ideologies, what is the place of individualism? We give answer. Next one. Fourth question. Ambedkar's idea of social justice leads to egalitarian justice. Egalitarian means equality. Okay, egalitarian justice as compared to Rawls justice. Please understand. We have to compare Rawls with Ambedkar. I already told you. Without Rawls, no question paper is given. Okay, which aims at the notion of pure procedural justice. Procedural justice means just making people equal before law. That is not enough. More than making people equal before law, okay, we have to, more than rule of law, we need to provide facilities, we need to provide institutions, we need to provide norms so that this equality could be realized. Okay, equality established is not enough. Rule of law is not enough. We have to make, we have to establish institutions, make norms, provide facilities for the people to make the equality realized in their everyday life. So this question is mainly addressed by Dr. Ambedkar and also John Rawls. Okay, very, very important person. Next one. About grassroots democracy, another question is asked. Panchayats, Gram Sabhas. So a question is asked. And entitlement theory of justice. Theory of justice. Another question is asked from theory of justice. That is part A. Now let us come to part B. So in part B, workers' movements. First question. We have to write 5 questions. 5 of these questions for 50 marks. Each question carries 10 marks. Okay. So about workers' movements in the post-independence period, preamble of Indian Constitution. These are very, very easy questions. Legislative Council. What is the importance of Legislative Council? What is its contemporary relevance? And how far the National Commission for Backward Classes, which we already study in polity classes, and a high concentration of academic activities and consumption patterns in post-liberalization after economic reforms. Okay, so concentration of academic activities and economic wealth or power is in the hands of, it is concentrated in the hands of only very few sections of Indian society. So a question is asked about it. So next one, electoral behavior. We already discussed this. I already explained this when we discussed about part B of paper 1. So how voters give their vote, how citizens give their vote, on the basis of what factors, okay, what influences them. So electoral behavior of voters is governed more by social and economic factors than political factors. For example, what is their status in society, how they can better social status, and how their financial conditions are shaped. So these influence voters more than, okay, political factors. So which person is in which political party, what they are saying, okay, what are their manifestos, more than that, okay, what they actually feel in their everyday lives shape their behavior. That is common sensual. Okay, so next one, basic structure doctrine. This year is the 50th year of Supreme Court used basic structure doctrine and checked the authority of central executive in making any amendments to the Indian Constitution. So this is the 50th year of the judgment of basic structure. So that question is also asked. Next one. So discuss the composition and the functions of the interstate council in order to resolve the disputes or any concerns between different states and also between the state and the center. So that we already discussed in syllabus concept. And 73rd, I already told you, without asking a question about the local governance, grassroots democracy, 73rd amendment, 74th amendment, okay, question paper will not be given. Next, the important role played by the speaker. Okay, so what is the role played by the speaker? Because speakers of legislative assemblies of various states and their actions are under discussion in newspapers. We just have to follow the important concerns raised and debated in the newspaper columns. So we can get a feel about which questions are most important for us to be prepared. So we can get that. And next one, discuss the policy initiatives of the 14th Finance Commission, which you already study in current affairs, schemes and Indian economy. Next one, ethnicity is the underlying cause. For example, this is a very important question with regard to Manipur because of the clashes that the state is witnessing in the recent times. So in the northeast, ethnicity and ethnic conflicts are still very, very active. Okay, so a question is asked on that particular challenge to Indian integrity, national integrity. Okay, next one. So Indian Constitution is mainly an attempt to achieve social revolution. That means to alter social and alter the present composition of Indian society and to create a better social norms and conditions for Indian people. It is mainly a document of a social manifesto. Okay, Indian Constitution never mentioned about how many $1 trillion of economy we have to create, how many nuclear missiles we have to produce, and how many weapons must we have, and what should be the composition of Indian army. No, these developmental questions are not mentioned in Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution actually mentions quite a bit about, it mainly gives us very great concern, it shows very great concern about the social composition of Indian society and how to create a social justice. Social justice is its main concern because where there is no social justice, political justice has no use and economic justice can never be achieved. Where there is no social justice, political justice is useless, political equality is useless. And where there is no social justice, economic justice can never be created, can never be achieved. Okay, these are the concerns of Baba Saheb Ambedkar also. Next one. So the last question in this particular question paper, paper 1, how far is it correct that the regional parties, the role of the regional parties have strengthened Indian democracy and a federal system? Okay, because I give you a hint how to answer that question. Because regional parties mainly raise regional concerns without creating any divisions, in the entire nation. They raise the concerns of regional groups or regional people, okay, people of different regions. So that has actually strengthened because these concerns have also come to the fore of the national debate. Okay, so these regional parties have played a very significant role. So this is about paper 1 in total. Now let us come to paper 2. With this, we will conclude our class. Paper 2. So in paper 2, we cover international relations and comparative politics. So what is the first question? So what are the main limitations? What are the main limitations of comparative? What are the main limitations of comparative method? Okay, we use different methods to compare political systems of one country with another country, but there are certain limitations. We can only compare so far and not more than that. So what are the limitations? That is a question asked. Next, what are the main challenges faced by the developing countries because of the effects of globalization? So India is making a very strong voice, okay, raising its voice for economic justice in the international arena. So that question is asked. And next one, discuss the commonalities between Marxist approach and realist approach in the study of international politics. There are various approaches to the study of international politics: idealist, realist, Marxist, okay, so etc. all this. So next one, bipolar structure is more stable than multipolar. That is accepted wisdom. That is also mostly discussed in the present newspaper columns also. Because in the bipolar system, there are only two superpowers. In the multipolar system, it is generally believed that peace cannot be protected in the international arena. So, explanation is asked for that statement. National interest is an essentially contested concept. Okay, for example, in the Russian-Ukrainian war, we believe that by doing business with, by keeping our relations intact with Russia, we have been serving our own national interest against the Western countries' pressure. But some people, some intellectuals, some foreign policy experts oppose that particular kind of approach because they believe that national interest is not only the short-term material interest of a nation, of our nation, but with regard to long-term interest of our nation, the short-term interest is an obstacle. National interest means not only the short-term interest, but a long-term interest. Okay, also long-term interest. Because we not only serve the interest of the present day, but also of the future interests. Okay, for the future well-being of our own life, we work hard, not only for a short-term interest. National interest is not only the material interest, not only petroleum, not only importing of natural gas or minerals or whatever. Okay, for our national interest, world peace is mostly required. Without peace in the world, our own national interest cannot be protected. So, whoever creates threats to world peace, so must also be dealt very seriously. So these are the views expressed by some of the experts in foreign policy. So my point is, okay, so national interest is studied and understood differently by different foreign policy thinkers. So that is the question. I am giving you an understanding of how these questions should also be answered. Okay, next. How has the electoral democracy augmented participation of people in the democratic process? Several topics about political parties and pressure groups are studied in this part B, part A of paper 2. Next one. So discuss the role of social movements like Black Lives Matter movement and the movement started by Paris citizens in the recent times, and also in India farmers movements. So what is the role of these protest movements in enriching democratic system, democratic process in the developing societies? Next one, composition of International Court of Justice, because that is under discussion in the present times. Critically examine the rise of China, especially after economic reforms in 1979. Only from that time onwards, China has been rising, and it now became the aspiring superpower, okay, opposing the world leadership of US. Okay, so that is very important. Next one, discuss the conceptual dimensions of collective security. So UN follows it. So collective security, to protect world peace, all the great powers are collectively responsible, not only a single country. Okay, next one. Discuss the efficacy of global conventions to combat terrorism. Terrorism topic we have already seen in the syllabus. Next one. Identify and evaluate the reasons for deadlock in WTO negotiations, in which India is playing a very important role with regard to fisheries between developing and developed countries. Developing countries have been gaining a lot of benefits out of conventions. They have been making these conventions in order to create better benefits for them. So, especially with regard to fisheries. What is the realist prescription to the states to ensure their survival in the anarchical world? Anarchical means no single country has been controlling the entire international system. So every country has its own way of approaching international relations. In this particular situation, so what are the prescriptions? What are the solutions given by the realist international relations theory that we study? Next one, this Russia-Ukraine crisis, which is already in debate and a discussion, is asked here. Russia-Ukraine crisis has cast a dark shadow on the energy needs of the member states of the European Union. Many European countries, especially the central and the eastern European part, have been suffering because of the energy restrictions on the flows of energy from Russia and Russia because of the Ukraine war. Now let us come to the section B. So fifth question. Peaceful coexistence is the most important concern of Indian foreign policy. Indian foreign policy is not only about serving the national interest of our own country at any expense. No, that is not the view of the founding fathers of Indian Constitution. So we, in our directive principles of state policy, also mentioned about serving world peace and protecting world peace, and also in promoting peaceful coexistence of nations. How can we achieve that? Next one. Discuss the ways and means to realize greater economic cooperation among member countries of South Asia in our own region. We already discussed this in our syllabus. Next. Discuss the steps required to realize hydro cooperation between India and Bangladesh, our relations with Bangladesh. Next one, cooperation agreement for Indo-US strategic relations, which are under discussion at present. India-US relations, Indo-Bangladesh relations, Indo-China relations, Indo-EU relations. These are mostly asked or discussed. Next one. Discuss the role of public diplomacy in the enhancement of India's global standing, which is rising at present because of several factors, mainly because of our economic development. We have been developing at a quite higher pace than other countries, because India's long-standing rivalry with China is making the Western countries understand the role of India that India could play in future. Because of that, our global standing has been rising. Next one, discuss the relevance of demand for new international economic order. In the present era of globalization, the problems of globalization which I already explained previously. So how to correct it? Through new international economic order. This is a very important question. Next one, critically examine the major factors responsible for turnaround in the trajectory of India's foreign policy. After the end of Cold War, in the post-Cold War, our foreign policy approaches have been seen very great transformation. Why that happened? We have to answer. Discuss the reasons behind India's refusal to sign nuclear non-proliferation treaty. So about non-proliferation, nuclear issue, these questions can be asked. About our strategy, India, Japan, because Japan is considered to be the close ally of India, even at present. So what are the main factors that are making India's growing partnership with Japan? So what are the implications of look east policy? Very important. Okay, and in the northeast region, for implementing this look east policy, in the conception of look east policy and in its implementation, the northeastern region is very important. Okay, next one. So, explain the factors which justify India's claim for permanent seat. Why should India, not only India, but several other countries like Japan, South Africa, Brazil, so these countries are also have been asking for a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. So, how we are justifying our claim? That's a question. And India, Israel bilateral ties and relations. So, that is another question. Discuss the consequences of illegal cross-border migration in India's northeastern region, especially from Bangladesh and from Myanmar. So, what are the ways of controlling this? And discuss India's vision of new world order in the 21st century. Okay, as a result of Russia's war on Ukraine, this has become a very important concern of foreign policy makers of India. So, these are the questions in detail. I already explained the syllabus in detail. Now, I complete this demo class by giving you some tips on how to approach political science. First and most important thing is to understand that several concepts, most of the concepts in political science have been interconnected. They are all interconnected. Okay. So, if we study the main concept properly, then we can understand other concepts very easily. That's the first and most important tip. Okay. Second one. Okay. We already study current affairs, foreign policy, international relations, Indian society, Indian economy, polity, modern history, post-independence history, modern world history. So, while we study them, if we keep in mind that this concept can also be asked in political science, then it will do us a lot of help. Okay. So, you will understand that when we take our classes. So, next one, third and most important thing is, okay, especially in the paper 2, both part A and part B. So, we have to properly understand the question, in which particular context the question is asked, what the questioner is expecting from us, rather than just pouring out all our knowledge on the paper. We must first understand why this question is asked, what is its context and what is its relevance, and then answer the question. Okay. And fourth and last and most important thing we need to remember regarding political science optional and political science and international relations optional is that, okay, so it lessens the burden of preparation for optional class, for optional subject. For example, out of 1750 marks, 500 marks are assigned for the optional. So, in this optional, only according to my own understanding, 30% of the syllabus is about things which we have to learn completely new, which are very simple, but newly we understand these concepts. The remaining 70% of the syllabus can be covered from other subjects. So, that reduces the burden on our efforts, on our time, and we have a better chance of completing the syllabus very easily. Okay. So, these are the advantages of political science, but according to my own understanding, there is only one simple disadvantage, defect, okay, or negative side to this political science optional. Okay. We have to be constantly connected with what is happening in the Indian political situation, in Indian society, and also in the world news. What is happening in the world news, we have to always connect until the completion of our exams, because that is, we may think about it as a negative aspect, but that will give us better results with regard to IR and foreign policy issues, current affairs, and other things as well. Okay. So, this is mutually benefiting. If we study other subjects properly, which I already mentioned, we can get better benefits in PSIR. If we study these concepts properly and seriously in PSIR, we can get better benefits in other subjects also, with a reduced burden on our efforts and on our time. But one thing is very important, that is to always try answering questions, okay, on every important topic. We have to take questions from test series or which we give in our course, and we have to prepare answers every day and making them corrected and getting the feedback and understanding the answer writing is very important with regard to PSIR optional. So this is the demo of PSIR. We discussed about syllabus and also question paper tips and my suggestions, and also the better method to answer the questions. So hope to see you all in the political science and international relations classes. Thank you.